Sorry, there's some technical
Okay.
difficulties. I think we're just waiting for Betsy and Candace, Betsy's here.
Betsy's here.
Okay,
Betsy's there.
great. All right,
I have an echo.
I'll just turn it over to you, Councilmember Kinnear. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. I'm told it's a new decade as well as a new year, so Happy New Year. And we're going to start with the approval of the minutes. So could I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Great. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Thank you. And next up is Sergeant Spearing is going to give us an update on the canine unit. I'm going to have him go first, and then we're going to do bicycle advisory interviews so that those folks can move on with their day. So, Sergeant Spearing, I saw you.
I'm here.
There you are. Happy New Year. Thanks for
Happy New Year.
attending.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us what's been going on. I know we've had increase in homicides, just off the charts. And has your team been involved in any of those?
My team was involved in tracking down suspect from one of the ones down in Browns Edition, yes. So that was 2 handlers, 2 dogs working in conjunction with each other. So first handler was Gorman and our new dog who tracked from the scene to the Monroe Street Bridge and then got off track. And the dog by that time was pretty exhausted. It was a long track. Then Officer Buckman and his canine partner Trace took over the track from the bridge, locating the suspect with the SWAT team on the other side of the Monroe Street Bridge, or Maple Street Bridge, sorry.
Okay. Good work.
So no bites on that one.
Okay.
And let me reopen my information here. So December recap, total deployments are 99, captures 37. We did have 3 contacts in December, so that was the highest month we've had all year, with a total contact ratio of 8.1%. And that's, again, numbers have been really low this year, so it's not necessarily an anomaly or alarming or anything. The Kerr versus City of West Palm Beach mandates 20% review, but I like to look at anomalies regardless if I consider them an anomaly or not. So when I see, okay, that just happens to be the highest month, I start looking at that. Well, 2 out of those 3 were off shift hour call outs. So in one, patrol had an occupied burglary in a business and had locked the area down and called in K9. And the other one, our anti-crime team was looking for a suspect who they had 3 counts of second-degree assault, domestic violence, where the suspect had allegedly pistol whipped his mother. So they were trying to contact him. And I'll get into that here in just a quick second. So when there's, with 3 contacts, 2 out of those 3 being call-outs, those are specifically requesting a dog for the dog purposes. It's not officers on patrol responding on their own to something. So I also want to recap the total for 2020, just so you guys have the numbers, and I'll have my report come out anyways through the Office of Professional Standards. 2020 total deployments were 1,228, 395 captures, 12 contacts, which is our total ratio of contacts is 3.0%. I look at that by day of the week and just make sure that everything is kind of consistent across the board. So our low average or our low number of deployments was Wednesdays. So on Wednesdays, we had 162 deployments across the year. Saturday was our high, 196. So there's no real spike or anomalies there. By month, February was the low at 77. May was the high at 152. I am not surprised being the warmer weather and all of that getting started in May. I also look at it by officer. Again, looking for anomalies. So our highest ratio by officer was 6.1% for that officer. That officer also had the highest number of deployments, though, at 301, had 43.22 call-out hours. That's not like a 4-hour minimum. That's the actual number of hours and minutes spent on call-outs. He had the lowest number of sick days and the lowest amount of vacation time as well. So everything looked par across the board when I'm looking into that. That last contact I talked about was December 20th. Again, they had probable cause for 3 counts of second assault domestic violence. The suspect had a history of unlawful possession of firearm and had, according to his mother, pistol whipped his mother. There was probable cause for that with a firearm. When officers surrounded the location and were going to work on calling the suspect out, he exited on his own anyways, was confronted by police, and rather than complying was refusing commands and started digging into his front waistband. And our canine covered that 20-plus yard distance, knocked him to the ground, grabbed onto his sleeve on his arm, and had his arm kind of up over his head. I don't know if you can see me like this, but had his arm up over his head as he was laying on the ground, tugging on his sleeve. Officers got to him because they're obviously slower than dogs, and he did have a firearm in his waistband is what he was digging for. They were able to take him into custody. With the injury to him was the bruise from the dog bumping into his leg and knocking him to the ground. The dog hadn't even contacted his arm. It was all sleeve. The firearm ended up being a realistic-looking BB gun. So this could have been absolutely the worst-case scenario where somebody could have been gravely injured or lost their life, and that obviously didn't happen. So overall, those are the numbers for the year, for the month, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way the team has worked this year.
Great.
I'm astounded. I'm so grateful that you're coming every month to update us, because I think it's important that we keep that information flowing. Are there any questions from council?
Councilmember Pierre, Sergeant Spearing, could you give me just the basic, what's the lowest requirement to deploy? You keep saying deployed. 1,028 was deployed. So what is the criteria for a deployment?
So a deployment is when a canine team is utilized in a canine team response. It's not necessarily what you would think of like releasing the dog or anything like that is not a deployment. It means the canine handler and his partner are sent to a call because of the nature of the fact that he is bringing the dog with him. The examples would be an alarm, burglary call, suspect tracking, an area search, things like that. When the handler gets to that, so that doesn't include the calls these guys go on a regular basis. For example, if they're utilized as backup on a traffic stop or something like that, that doesn't count as a deployment. It's just the fact that the handler and the dog could bring an asset to the officers on scene by being there. The officers don't count it as a deployment if it's just a routine call that they're responding as backup or they're taking themselves. And the deployment itself doesn't necessarily mean that the officer is utilizing the dog, because the handler still gets to that call and determines whether the dog is an appropriate measure based on the circumstances, if it fits within policy, procedure, state law, federal law. An example I'll give you, just this week we went to assist county on what was considered an occupied burglary. I went with Officer Fabian and his canine partner King, and we were deployed to that for the reason that the dog can be used in an occupied burglary to help assist search. Upon arriving there, we saw that the house, it looked like a ghost house. And so some of the questions that hadn't been asked were, how long has it been since somebody lived there? And it was 12 years. Well, that's obviously not a burglary. It's an abandoned house. It's falling apart. At best, you might have trespassing, and we're not going to use a dog on somebody trespassing in a home. So that was a situation where we were deployed to that event, but the dog wasn't even utilized because it wouldn't have been appropriate or fallen within our policy. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sergeant Sparing by council? Right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your
Thank you.
time and all that
No
you
worries.
do.
Thank you.
Right. We're going to have our interviews. I see Ryan is there. Hi, Ryan. Welcome.
Hi.
Start with you. I don't see the other person on the screen, but let's start with you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a junior at Lewis and Clark High School, and I'm part of the environmental club. So when I found out there was a bike board opening, I thought that was a cool thing since that's like environmentally friendly transportation, and I think it'd be cool to like make that a bigger thing. And so yeah, like I bike with my friends, and it's a fun social aspect for me, but I also enjoy it because it's exercise and it's outside. Yeah, so environment is a big part of something I stand for and want to keep improving, especially for generations to come. So,
Great. Thank you. Do we have some questions? Council President, do you want to lead off with some questions? You're on mute. There we go.
I don't have any questions for Ryan. I saw Ryan interviewed by the Bicycle Advisory Board already, so I'm really excited to see you here and express your interest. So I don't have any, but if anyone else does, it'd be great.
Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Stratton.
Hi, Ryan. First, thank you so much for applying. This is wonderful. We need to get your generation involved as much as possible these days. My question is, what do you think is the biggest issue with your generation and bike routes, commuting, and with bicycles in the city? Are there safety issues or other kinds of issues that you hope to address on the board?
so I think like more bike lanes would be beneficial. I know we have like quite a bit, but I think that would be good. And also like bike locks in more places and like better routes, especially to LC, because I know people would probably be down for biking to school, at least in the warmer weather. But it's kind of hard going up and down the hill, at least especially on the South Hill, because it's straight down and then straight up, basically. Yeah, those are the big things.
Thanks. Go ahead, Councilmember Burke.
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you, Ryan. I just wanted to say, thanks for applying. I also am a graduate from LC, so go Tigers. And I was on the Bicycle Advisory Board in 2013, and our youth representative is still a friend of mine. So, take this as an opportunity to stay connected to the community, and there's a lot of really great people on the BAB. So I hope you can find a place to fit in there. And then, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to go on a bike ride, because I love biking. So good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Anybody else? I just want to thank you for volunteering to do this. I think it's really important that we get your generation involved in our community, and especially things that are environmentally important to us as a region and as a city. So thank you for your time. Council President, we're going to be approving this tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And Ryan, you don't need to show up. It's pretty perfunctory at this point now that we've had a chance to meet you and talk to you. But we will be letting you know so that you can start going to the meetings. Thank you so much for your service.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes. Council President, who is the other person that would be interviewed?
Satish, and I don't know if I see them.
I don't see them.
Are you on the phone, Satish? No.
No?
All right.
Okay.
Dang, he's really cool.
All right.
Well, if they come on later, we can have them we'll pop them in the middle of the meeting.
Okay, great.
So consent agenda, I didn't have anybody that wanted to take anything off. So,
Councilor Kinnear,
yes.
would it be possible to discuss the sexual assault piece, or is that in the regular agenda?
The registered sex offender one?
No, the grant for overtime to pay for kits for DNA.
What number is that I'm looking?
Let's see. Give me a moment.
3.
Oh, it's number 3.
Number 3. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have somebody that can speak to that?
Hi, Council. This is Major McNabb with the Police Department. This is mine.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, WASPIC has been awarded $3 million to work on the backlog of sexual assault kit. Not so much the testing, but the investigation. So what has been going for the past, I think 5 years now, where we started identifying that there was a large number of kits statewide that were untested. And so we got funding to test the kits. And Spokane has submitted all their kits for testing. Submitted doesn't mean that they've been tested, but it means they've been submitted for testing. So we're starting to get the results of some of those tests back. And in about 90 of those cases that we've had tested, we've gotten a CODIS hit, meaning somebody's been identified that's in the database. And what needs to happen and what this grant will do will allow us to have somebody go through those cases as a triage to find out which cases need to be investigated, which cases where the person identified was a consensual partner or something that won't speak to the issue of the crime. But ultimately, it was created so we can bring closure for some of these folks, no matter the outcome, some modicum of closure, whether that's be that we've looked at their case and and tested their kit and didn't come back with any results, or it identified somebody that was a suspect in the case and we take it all the way to prosecution. So there's a spectrum of closure that occurs, and what this sergeant will do is go through these cases and figure out which ones need to be investigated and which ones don't. Currently, right now, we would have to set current cases aside in order to work on the backlog, and we cannot do that. So this will allow us to focus on this backlog work.
Great. Councilmember Cathcart, go ahead.
Yeah. What right now is the backlog of kits? How far back is that backlog at this point?
So we have, we have submitted 711 kits, and that's all the kits back from all time. Any kit we had on property could be back 20 years ago, when they weren't even using DNA yet. And so of those that we've gotten back, we've gotten 90 CODIS hits on those cases. So that means there's 90 cases that a sergeant needs to look at, read, research, possibly even, depending on the age of the case, actually request the reports that were purged from our system and turned over to WASPIC, gather all that information, and see if there's investigative merit to the case. And then we would also work with the local victim advocates using best practices for how to contact people when it's been a long time since they've heard about the case, and how to best do that with a trauma-informed perspective in mind.
So we're up to date though. All the kits that could be processed have been processed.
This now we're just dealing with the results of those tests. In fact, Spokane was way ahead of most places in the state for getting their kits submitted for testing.
Any other questions? Councilmember Wilkerson, go ahead.
So my question is, when this funding runs out and we still have these cases, what is the plan to continue with that work?
think that that's a great question for our state legislature, if they would hopefully extend this funding for us. Like I said, if we were to a status quo to divert resources to focus on these cases, we'd have to not focus on current cases that we are taking in. So I don't think that'd be a responsible allocation of resources. I would love to be able to keep this cold case unit going and be able to focus on not only sexual assault cold cases, but also homicide cold cases.
Yeah. Councilmember Mom.
Thank you. And that's exactly where I was hoping you were going to go, Mr. McNabb, because this is sort of an ongoing process. I'm so glad we're applying for the grant, first of all. Very thankful to the legislature for providing this information, and so glad Spokane was ahead of the curve. But, you know, in your briefing paper, we have to use overtime hours, 100 overtime hours, which is a very expensive way to go about this. And I'm just wondering, you know, council, as we move forward in budgeting for the police department, this could be, I think, a dollar saver, because we could get on top of this and get ahead of it, so we're not having to use overtime hours, plus solving these cases much more quickly, which is better for the victims and better for the community to put some of these folks away.
Yeah.
So really great to have this data point that we know what our baseline is, but I'm just hoping, I guess my question is, do you think the work will be done by June of 2021, or could you foresee a need for more funding to carry on?
I think it would take a couple of years, because not all the, we've submitted 711 kits. All those haven't been tested yet, so we're waiting on the lab to do their work. So that work product is not going to come in, could be for up to a year from now. Just to speak on the overtime hours, that what we're doing is we're applying the grant money, is the bulk of it is paying for the difference between the salary difference between an officer and a sergeant, to promote a sergeant temporarily to do this work. The overtime I put in there is for if they have an opportunity in their schedule and they have the capacity to come in on a weekend or in an evening and do extra work on these cases, to allow that flexibility.
So I think that's where maybe for another time a discussion would be on the importance of not having to be something that we focus on when we have time. This seems really important. And as time goes on, maybe it's a matter of more hours, more effort up front that we can talk about to get it done now. Because as time goes on, it's like it loses a half-life, right, in investigations. So great to have the database or the baseline on it, but I really feel this is important for us to get on top of as a community. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Anyone else? Council member or council president? Sorry.
Yeah, Major McNabb, I had a question from a constituent. Are we likely to get this money as long as we apply? Is it pretty secure that we're going to get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thanks. That'll make that person happy.
Even better. You get the money. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Major McNabb. Appreciate the update. All right, we're going to move on, and got to switch between, I think we have, oh, you know, I saw, let's see, Satish, are you there?
Yep.
I am. Can you hear me?
Welcome. And you have applied to join the Bicycle Advisory Board, am I correct?
That's right.
Perfect. So we're going to interview you now so you don't have to sit through the whole meeting. And
Thank
why
you.
don't you start out with telling us a little bit about yourself?
So I have been living in Spokane since 2008, and I love biking around town. Big fan of the city. And I'm just excited to join the Bicycle Advisory Board to support the ongoing efforts and maybe add a few more.
Okay. Questions from council? Karen, you had a good question the last time.
So my question, thank you so much for applying. My question was, as a cyclist, what do you see are some major concerns that you would like to kind of dive into and discuss on the Bicycle Advisory Board regarding transportation, bicycles as, transportation to and from work, recreational biking, those kinds of issues?
Overall, I feel like compared to most other cities in the U.S., Spokane is pretty good in terms of bicycle infrastructure and culture as well. But having said that, there is also a great opportunity for us to excite people to the act of biking. I think the infrastructures we have in town are pretty good for the city of its size. And I think if we can get people excited to ride their bikes and get on bikes more often, I think that could change the city culture in some ways. And, we could be recognized as a bike-friendly city, not only in papers, but also in reality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you also for applying. So, Spokane being a bike-friendly city, when COVID hit, there wasn't a bicycle to be found in this city because everybody had went out and purchased them. So I thought that was quite momentous for us, actually, as a way to get around and to engage others. Again, with the bike lanes that are what I've seen that are kind of in the middle of the street, I have some concerns. Have you ridden on those lanes, and how did you feel about that?
I have personally, probably it's because I have been riding bikes for so long, and the fact that I find it very enjoyable. The scare factor has kind of gone away, but at the same time, I am only as safe as drivers around me. So I think, having spent some time with the active biking community in town, I feel like most of my peers are pretty well aware of those rules of the roads. But I think when it comes to drivers, I wish we could educate drivers more in terms of how they can be friendly to bicyclists and also pedestrians. So I think the bike lanes that we have in town are all up to code as far as I know. And I think most bikers are aware of those infrastructures and rules of the roads. But I think one opportunity we have is to kind of make drivers aware, and maybe it's an opportunity to educate non-bicyclists so that we can all be safe in the roads.
I agree. Anybody else? Okay. Council President, did you have something?
Oh, I just was going to say thank you, Satish, so much for applying. And we're going to be voting to appoint you this evening at our 6 o'clock meeting, but there's no need to show up for that virtually. And we will confirm that with you so that you can start attending meetings. And just thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry I was a little late to this meeting.
Not a problem. We got to interview you. Again, yes, thank you for your service to our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Next up is Chief Schaefer. Discussion of extension of interlocal agreement with Shrek for backup fire dispatch services. Want to go ahead?
Sure. I'll just be brief. The recent change in the relationship between the City Fire Department and Shrek that you may or may not be aware of is they denied the city's request for extending what we used to call or refer to as the interlocal agreement, the ILA, which provided backup services, backup services including things like brakes, shift coverage, and essential staffing supplementation during the vacancies that we've been dealing with over the past couple months. That was up for renewal or extension, and the board voted their last meeting not to extend. So for the fire department, we do have a plan for continuity of service with that change, understanding that we, thanks actually to the council and the support for 11 total FTEs on our 2021 budget. And that allows us to staff 2 per shift as we are today, but also allows us to put 2 what we call power shift communication specialists as well as one relief communication specialist to cover vacancies. That brings us to a full staff of 11, which we feel is adequate for dispatching. We have 2 vacancies currently in that unit, and we are working with civil service for a firefighter dispatcher recruitment as well as a simultaneous recruitment externally, but the external one will obviously take more time because there's not a current list. And then lastly, we are working on what we're calling an automatic aid agreement, similar to the 3 automatic aid agreements that we have with our neighbors, the Spokane Valley Fire Department, District 9 and District 8, where we send the closest resource in an emergency. The automatic aid agreement in the dispatch realm would function very similar, so that if there is, like Sunday morning, when we have extremely difficult and challenging incident that needs both of our communication specialists focus solely on 1 or 2 incidents, we would have the ability to share our volume, the emergency volume, with our partners in a very temporary and limited time period, similar to what we do on a daily basis with automatic aid. And that, at least in discussion with the executive director and many of the board members, because they're familiar with it in the fire world, seems to be very supportive and is going to, boil down to an agreement for automatic aid. So that is the briefing on the extension for the interlocal. And I can entertain any questions at this point if you have any.
Any questions for Chief?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
I have a couple of them. First of all, what was the vote? Do you know the vote split?
I'm sorry, I do not. I believe it was unanimous, though. It was a web call, so it was really tough to hear because I wasn't on the computer. I was on the audio, but it sounded like it was a unanimous vote.
And when was in this agreement, we also were going to back them up, so we don't have that obligation?
Yes, it was a reciprocal type of agreement where we would do the same thing. One of the changes that is occurring there and is probably led to their decision for the coverage piece is their shifts are changing. They're eliminating their 24-hour shifts, and they're going to a 12-hour shift. So they won't need those break coverages like we do on a 24-hour shift pattern.
And when does just 2 more questions. When does our current agreement end with them for backup?
The end of this month. So the end of January 31st would be the expiration of the agreement.
And I believe this comes at a great cost savings to us. Wasn't it over $50,000 a month for that agreement?
That is about what we were paying for, Councilmember. I'm not sure the exact amount, but I believe it was right around $50,000 to $60,000 a month.
And we can use those funds to pay for the new hires. Is that correct?
I believe those funds will mostly be assisting us with covering the overtime because the 2 vacancies that we have now are filling with overtime.
But then down the road, they'll be saved.
Right. If those budget dollars are available, certainly that would be an appreciable contribution to our budget to allow us to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cathcart, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, whereabouts are we in terms of getting fully staffed so that we are operational on our own?
So that's a really good question, Council Member. But it's a complex answer, so I want to give it a fair response here. For us to be, and for us to have what we had during the Combined Communications Center, we would need a significant more investment than 11 people. 11 people gives us the ability to simply manage the voice communications piece of our business. So the ability for us to respond to radio traffic, to put calls out, not the part with us being able to answer 911, which we previously used to do. Remember, Shrek answers 911 with emergency medical dispatchers now. That takes the load off of us to be able to have us focus on dispatching the calls and being that nexus between the field personnel and the communication system. For us to do that would be a significant more investment, likely 3 per shift, which would bring the unit up to probably about 17 or 18 people. But our plan, was for Shrek to continue doing the 911 and emergency medical dispatching, primarily because that allows the clock to stop. When somebody calls 911, there's no transfer. So if it's a critical situation where somebody needs to go hands-on with CPR or deliver life-saving interventions, they are on the phone and they're able to do that right away. So from our perspective, we'd like to keep that unit or that body of work in with Shrek and focus on us dispatching our calls and taking care of the people in the field. Does that make sense, or does that kind of explain the situation okay?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, good. Chief, do you want to go to the next agenda item?
Sure. This was just an update that I think you and I spoke with Councilmember Kinnear about our status with providing the vaccine to our employees. We have joined a coalition, and this has been in the planning for several weeks, to not only treat our people, but also treat the entire region within the Spokane County area. So we're providing vaccination with a task force made up of groups of paramedics throughout Spokane County to vaccinate upwards of about 2,500 responders with the first dose of Moderna vaccine. That's inclusive of our law enforcement partners, as well as people in corrections and in EMS only, volunteer, first response, it doesn't matter. We're providing that at the training center. Last time I spoke with them, that amount today is about 150 first responders, and we're going to be doing that for 10 days throughout this period. So I think the intent was just to share with the council the situation as we see it in terms of actually delivering product to people in the field that need it, and realize that we're trying to meet your intent of employee safety and the concern for the public, because obviously we are one of the perfect vectors in this specific illness. If we're not healthy, we would be seeing people at their most vulnerable, and we need to make sure that we're healthy and we're protecting the public. So that's going on starting today at 0800, and we'll be going for 10 more days, and then we'll have a solution in 28 days for the second dose. It may be given in the same type of a drive-through situation, or we may do more of a clinic. It just depends on our experience from this first 10 days. And I welcome any questions about this process.
Councilmember Mom, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there has been any discussion from the health side about how to reassure the public. Say in a month and a half, we have a firefighter come on scene who has been vaccinated. Do we let them know that? Are they still going to be required to wear a mask, or is there some way to symbolize to the public, hey, I'm safe, when they see someone not masked?
Well, at this point, that's a great question. It's a concern that has been echoed by a number of different groups across the country of, even down to the point of traveling. Like, are these mask mandates still going to be required by different levels of government? And like you said, like when we come, at this point, until we garner enough immunity in the work groups, we're going to remain with the personal protective standard that we have today, and we'll continue that through the next couple months. I think what we would like to see is some direction and some good guidance from our health community, our public health community, as to what that looks like. So I'll forward that question on to our task force and to our fire operations center and start working and see if we get some ideas from the ones that are following this very closely, especially with the variant, because we've got limited amount of information. We're up to 3 or 4 states now across the country that have experience with this variant, and only 2 companies with vaccine are being widely distributed here. So there's still a lot to learn. And I think right now I really want to err on the side of safety for the public and for us. So we'll be in masks and gowns and eyewear until such time as we feel comfortable that we're not placing anybody in jeopardy. But it's a great question, and I'll take care of that and forward it up to them to have them working on it.
Any other questions for the chief? Appreciate that update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Burke, you're up with SPD Behavioral Health Unit update. So did you have something specific you were looking for? You're muted. There we go.
Sorry, thank you. Let me just pull up my questions really quick.
And do we have somebody who's going to be answering your questions that's on our call?
Yes, I can answer them for.
Okay, well, awesome. Do you want to just give an overview of this for us? And then I've got a few follow-up questions.
Sure. So far in our first year, BHU's had great success in our outreach. And we've been able to, within 1 year, reach a total of around 1,900 people with a 70% success rate of diverting people from jails and hospitals. Our unit focuses on finding solutions and connecting individuals in crisis to resources rather than just putting a Band-Aid on it. And we're learning as we go. I don't think there's one right way to do something, but we're continuing to strive forward.
That's amazing. Those are really great statistics. So I do have a couple of follow-up questions. I wondered, do you have statistics around if there's any reoccurrences or, the same types of people, the same people you're seeing over and over again, or how does that work?
Yeah, that is something that we focus on as well. Recidivism within the behavioral health crisis system. And if you look at individuals that are in a 72-hour hold and they go back out, and we're focusing on them again. One aspect of our unit that we really try to focus on that helps with that is our follow-up. So we're able to build rapport with them, avoiding them entering into a state of crisis, whether it be taking them to the pharmacy to get their medication, providing them the food, connecting them with resources. And we're able to establish a rapport with them when they're at baseline, but also when they're at crisis, so we build that trust. So we're really, really focusing on reducing that recidivism within the system to reduce the calls for service and to keep them safe within the community.
That is amazing. This is one of my favorite parts, the things that we've done where we're really gathering data around it to see how we can better serve our community. So I also wondered, so are these officers that are going out in these units, are they trained any differently than any of the other officers? Do they have any sort of special training around this, or is it just kind of they're there to support and help?
No, I think, we interview for the process, so we try to have the right fit. We try to have a seasoned officer that has a good connection or a personal, connection with behavioral health. But also they do receive extensive training in motivational interviewing, CIT, most all of them are advanced CIT, and then we have ongoing trainings that we provide, Columbia Suicide Risk Assessment, internal trainings that we provide from Lutheran Family Services, from Frontier Behavioral Health. Weekly, we are receiving training that relates to dealing with those in crisis.
Awesome. That's great. And I have been wondering this myself. We're actually going to go over this in one of our next meetings, but STA, Spokane Transit Authority, is hiring in the transit facility downtown, which is across the street from the precinct, which is where I assume these folks are harbored when they're not on calls. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, to me, it seems like that would be a great opportunity for one of these units to maybe be close to the STA Plaza. Do you have a lot of action around the STA Plaza in terms of, these calls, or where are the general population of the calls coming from?
That's a great question. You would think that there are a lot of calls focused in that downtown core, STA, intermodal. Well, where yes, there are some, but where we are also a regional unit as well. We are focused throughout the entire county. But we do have a co-deployed team assigned to downtown. They do foot patrols, and they're able to outreach to those within the STA Plaza frequently, because a simple walkthrough will generate 3 to 5 contacts. And that's where we really, with the downtown precinct and having these individuals, having that FaceTime with the people really helps, because we can build rapport even when a mental health crisis is not involved, but just day-to-day occurrences. And it's huge to see the benefits of what we're reaping from that. So to answer your question in short, yes, there will be. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So just one more. I have many more, but I can follow up with an email if we have more. But so generally, if 911 was to get a phone call that is now diverted to you, would it have gone to the fire department, or would it have gone to the police department? And how do they determine the difference?
911 will triage those calls and send them to either the police or fire side. And a lot of times it does result in both going based upon the needs. And that's something that is just case by case, whether it's a medical need or a behavioral need. And we kind of base it off that from the get-go.
Councilmember Byrd, can I respond to that as well? Just to follow up on Jay's perspective, in terms of interrogation, when there's a medical aspect picked out, we're automatically sent. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll be the differential. We do have a behavioral health unit as well. The police department has many more, and we have one that primarily focuses during the day only. And we have to work with each other all the time. We use theirs probably, I'd say, 6 times more than ours, because ours is in service as much as theirs. So we'll do a medical exam, rule out all the metabolic and all the differentials for problems that would require a hospital, and then clear them so that they could go directly to an appropriate facility and avoid an emergency department, or vice versa. I mean, we're constantly using the police department as well to clear people from being physically disruptive. They've got that ability, and without the police department as our partners, we probably wouldn't be as successful as we are.
Awesome, that's really helpful. Yeah, I've always just wondered, where these behavioral calls went to previously before this unit was here, if they went to the fire department, or if they always have gone to the police department. Of course, there's probably different stipulations if there's a weapon, those type of things, but that was just something I was curious about.
Most of those, I think Jay would agree with, our suicide calls. We're normally both there together, especially if it's involved in an overdose of some sort. But when it's strictly mental health now, we've got options. Now we're able to send that directly to PD's co-deployed teams. And if there's a medical part, then we jump in and help out with that.
Let me interrupt for just a minute to, Councilmember Burke, let's see if anybody else has any questions about this. Any other council members have questions? Okay. Did you have any other questions, Councilmember Burke? We have a little bit of time.
No, I didn't. I just wanted to thank you guys for both giving your perspectives, and thanks for being on here, Sergeant, to give us a little bit of the statistics around this. And I'd love for this to become, a really successful permanent program, and to see a CIT group, out on the street doing outreach and all that kind of stuff, because I think it's a more successful way for our community to move forward.
And I would like to say thank you too, Sergeant, because I think I echo Councilmember Burke's sentiments. It's really important that we have that piece to help us help people who are in crisis. So thank you for sharing that information. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to just inquire again. I know you spoke about your continuing education with the team and its outreach. Tell me, has that been inclusive of people of color and how you interact with them in their mental health crisis?
And so, Councilmember Wilkerson, who are you directing your question to?
Sergeant Jay.
I don't think he's...
I still see his face on the
I
screen.
see his face, but he's frozen.
He's frozen? Okay. Well, I'll circle back around. I was just curious with everything going on. I know that there are still instances where people are treated differently, especially in the mental health arena, based on the color of their skin and the options that are provided to them. And I just want to make sure that we continue to look at that as we go forward.
Okay, no, he's not frozen. Sergeant, you're not frozen now. Did you hear her question?
He might have lost us or something.
I know, I'm thinking that too.
Maybe his volume's down.
So, Councilmember Wilkerson, would you follow up, and then maybe you could share with the rest of us what the answer is? That'd be great.
Will do. Thank you.
Next up is Melissa Morrison. I see you, Melissa. So why don't you go ahead with your presentation?
Thank you. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. So this is an update on the National League of Cities, Cities of Opportunity, that I briefed you all on back in, I think it was November. It was an opportunity for the city to partner with the National League of Cities on strengthening partnerships between the city and health systems. And so this is just kind of an update on next steps. So it's a grant opportunity to receive expert coaching and technical assistance. So the city of Spokane was selected as one of the participating cities. So 12 cities nationwide were selected. We are the only West Coast city, so we have a lot to represent for not only our city and our state, but the entire West Coast. And the timeline is January through July, so there'll be about a 6-month program of small group work sessions, working with the other 11 cities around the country on a bi-monthly basis to be talking about issues and identifying specific challenges and opportunities that the city of Spokane would like to focus on strengthening our partnerships between our health system in the city of Spokane with a focus on health equity and equity outcomes. Some of the past programs that this program worked on with other cities in past years have been around looking at affordable housing or housing working within health systems. And so a lot of overlap with a lot of conversations that we're having right now in the city and in the council office. So the first session right now is tentatively scheduled for January 27th. And these sessions I laid out are kind of the cross-city meetings. So with the 11 different cities, these are going to be the session topics that will be talked about, and then there'll be small group breakouts in between the main sessions for our city and to work with other cities to kind of talk about the topics and come up with kind of a plan. So next steps for us, for the city of Spokane, is working with some of the partners before the January 27th meeting to talk about, what we want to focus on, ideas, thoughts, so we can really hit the ground running when we meet on the 27th. So an exciting opportunity, and I'm excited to get working on this and kind of dig into the information and see what we can learn.
Questions for Melissa? I can't see you all, so there we go. Go ahead, Candace, Mom. Go ahead.
Hi, and Betsy's waiting too.
Okay.
So congratulations, Melissa. This is so fabulous. Wonderful news. Wondering about how we can maximize this huge win for Spokane. Things like, can we have anyone participate and observe? Can we tape it, have Cable 5 tape it so we can have it on demand? So anybody who wants to watch and participate, I know maybe breakout sessions, no, but there could be some fabulous information here. Maybe even our plan commission could be engaged. Just those kinds of questions.
Yeah, I can reach out to the National League of Cities and find out kind of what the parameters around that with the other cities working. I don't know what the, if taping it and publicly broadcasting it would be okay, but I'd be happy to reach out and ask them about, what we can do around that. Also, the identified partners right now are Better Health Together, the Public Health Department, CHHS, and the council office. And so I think we could talk to the Planning Commission to see if someone would be interested in attending as well, to be on that. They want kind of a smaller steering committee from the city side to participate and take the information back to the larger community. So I can definitely follow up with Planning Commission to see if someone might be interested.
And also planning staff, I might put in there too. I don't know if you have a planning staff member. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Councilmember Wilkerson, go ahead.
I just want to echo Councilmember Mum. Great shout out to the policy team. For those who don't remember, we've had several grants come to the city through our policy team that is strengthening us, and that we are able to partner with cities on the other side of the state, but that are similar size, some similar socioeconomic dynamics, and that we are moving forward and not just operating in our own silo here in Spokane. So I think an influx of new ideas is great. So kudos to Melissa for writing the grant.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. I noticed that the sergeant is back. Councilmember Wilkerson, if you want to try your question again.
Sergeant Jay, we are like bird dogging you. Are you back? There, I see a smile. So my question was, you answered part about your continuing education with your team in the mental health field. I was asking, what about your education and how you interact with people of color and those outcomes, and if you were seeing any disparities there? I know we love data, but sometimes data dehumanizes people, and I would just like to know a little bit more on that. And if you're not tracking that, then I think it would be something beneficial to bring to the council. At least it would be beneficial to me.
Yeah, currently, initially we focused on transitioning from labeling it as a mental health crisis to behavioral health crisis and tracking that data and identifying the veterans versus non-veterans, as well as transient or people experiencing homelessness and that population as well. Currently, we do not track racial trends. A lot of times our tracking system is built into a statewide questionnaire that we enter through WASPIC. So, and that is not one of the things that they had asked us to track. But that's something we could definitely probably run some reports and try to find out.
That'd be great. Again, are folks of color getting the same opportunities for diversion programs that are being offered to dominant culture? That would be my question going forward.
I can definitely get that answer for you. But I know the answer, but I can gather data for you.
All right. We have no other items on our agenda, and we are 1 minute past an hour, so this is a record for me because these meetings usually run long, so yay. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order? Okay, go ahead, Council President.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know we're going to have a pretty extended briefing session and executive session this afternoon, but our meeting is going to be real short. So if you want to get snacks or things like that, you might want to have it before briefing because there's not going to be a lot of time probably between executive session and the meeting, but I promise you the meeting itself will not go long.
Okay, go ahead. All right, thank you for that. And thank you all for participating, and we will see you in a month. If you have agenda items you want to include next month, please let Jacoby know, and he will add them. So see you all at 3:30. Thank you.
Thank you.